In this video, we're going to deep dive into how to set up your Facebook ad targeting, specifically if you are selling like digital products or high ticket programs. Because from what I've seen in a lot of the other videos on YouTube, when it gets to targeting, is like a lot of them are very e-com focused. And a lot of people talk about just like broad targeting, let it rip, and then Facebook will find your best people. While there is some validity to that, there are definitely like some more detailed strategies that I think are really important to understand when you are like an online course creator, an online coach, someone selling high ticket products, trying to sell really expensive stuff online. So we're going to dig into that in this video right here. Really quick, if you don't know me already, my name is Brice, and I have been behind the scenes helping grow online education companies selling digital products and high ticket programs for nearly the last decade now. And so everything I share on this channel is just what I do with my clients every single day. And I spend a lot of time and a lot of money running ads for the clients that I work with. And so we're going to go through the new way that we're doing our audience targeting and how we're thinking about it so you can do the exact same thing for your business. It really wasn't that long ago where when we were running new ad campaigns, we would go out and research hundreds of different interest audiences. And then when we would launch our campaigns, we'd probably launch with like 50 different ad sets where we're trying to figure out if Tony Robbins converted better than Brendan Burchard. And we'd have all these different targeting ideas that we would go through in order to figure out who were the best like little micro audiences and little pockets of audiences that we could go after with our campaigns. Now, these days, things are completely different. We have a much more simplified structure that we're using in order to launch campaigns. And so usually when we launch campaigns, we're starting with just like 3 or 4 audiences. And depending on where we're at with like the stage of the campaign, whether we have maybe some past data on our pixel or anything like that, we'll decide like what those audiences are going to be. And I'm going to walk you through that in this video here. But I think a couple of the really important things to understand from the very beginning is like these days, the actual creative does a lot of the heavy lifting. And one from like the standpoint of, yes, your ad should speak to the right person and actually pull them in. But another really important thing to understand is like Facebook can actually scan your ad the second it gets uploaded to the platform. And so if you're running a video ad, as soon as you upload that to the platform, Facebook scans what is the text, like what is the body text, what is the headline, what are the keywords that are being used in that ad copy. It breaks down your video frame by frame, and it actually looks at what are all the images that are being used in every single frame, and it understands the text and the transcript of that video. And it pulls out the keywords from that. It can understand the sentiment and all the things that are going on in your video. And so as soon as you upload any ad to the platform, Facebook's algorithm is starting to understand who is this ad targeted to and who are the people that typically respond to these types of ads. And so I think that's a really important thing to notice because it's not just that, yes, your ad should speak to the right person, but it's like you are actually through their algorithm starting to set the targeting just by what you put into the ad platform. And so that's really important to understand. The other thing too is, yeah, of course, like when we want our ad to be way more specific to call out to our people, and so that someone who is our ideal customer can instantly see that this ad is for them. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. Another thing that's really important to understand in this kind of like new way of targeting is that the Facebook pixel will actually go out and find a lot of your best customers, which means we need to train it the right way because you cannot scale a dirty pixel. And I'm going to walk you through that here in just a second as well. But often what this leads to is these days we're using much bigger and broader audiences inside the actual ads manager. Facebook's using that as suggestions to figure out where to go get started. And then our creative and our pixel is actually helping us do a lot of the targeting. And so when you think about it that way, then you've got a couple of variables that you're dealing with. You're dealing with like, what is the actual targeting in the ads manager, which we're going to go over here in just a second. You're dealing with what are the actual creatives. And so like, what is the actual copy, the images or the video, the headline that you're using in the ads. And then how are you training the pixel to go out and find your best customers? And so all of that is what we're going to cover here in this video right now. The first place to get started is the actual ads manager itself. So when you are setting up a new campaign, you will have in the ad set level, this is where we're going to set all of our targeting. And so really important here, like everything that we do here is helping us figure out who we're going to target. In terms of, making sure we have the right pixel set up, what conversion event you're optimizing for is very important. When you are setting up your conversion event, it's really important here that we optimize for exactly what we want. And I have a whole nother video down in the description that I would definitely recommend checking out about like how to train Facebook to send you better leads. Because what happens for a lot of people, especially when I see people getting started with advertising, is oftentimes here what they're optimizing for is just like general leads because maybe they have like a lead magnet or some free thing that they just want people to opt in and download. The problem is how many of those people are actually good leads? The answer is usually not very many. And so if you're just optimizing for leads, you will often get exactly what you are asking for. And so in that case, you'll just get a bunch of general leads. And as more and more bad leads come into your CRM, and as the pixel sees more and more bad leads, it's just going to keep training on those leads. And so really important here is that we want to go through and figure out, like, how do we train the pixel to only send us good leads? And that's what we can use, the strategy that's down in the description below. But basically what it is we need to have some kind of filtering mechanism so that Facebook is not learning what a bad lead is and thinking that that's what you want. What that means is when you are running like a lead magnet, let's say you're trying to give away something for free. So what you would do is you run your ads to a lead landing page. And then on that landing page, your ads for like name, phone number, or like name and email, whatever it is. Most people just send everybody to one thank you page. And so even though most of those leads aren't super qualified, they're not really good leads, you're telling Facebook, hey, just give me more of anyone who will give me their name and email right here. And again, what you're doing is you're just slowly training Facebook on who's like a bad lead. Now, what you could do that's like a more advanced strategy is you could come in here and say like, okay, on this form, you could ask like 1 or 2 questions, and then you could split the traffic. And like, if anyone who is a good qualified lead, you send them to one thank you page. Anyone who's not a good qualified lead, you send them to another thank you page, and you only have the Facebook on this page. And so that way, what you're doing is you're training Facebook on to send you more qualified leads. Now, what we really like to do is we run a lot of VSL sales call funnels. And so what we'll end up doing is we will end up having like qualification questions in the application itself, so that if someone has the wrong answer, so they don't look like a good lead, they get disqualified, so they don't get sent to the calendar. Then people get sent to the calendar, and we have the Facebook pixel back here. So we're only sending the lead back to Facebook and saying, hey, this is a good lead if they have gone through the application, filled out the right questions, booked a call, and landed over here. And then we can even take it one step further and have the sales team actually review those applications, qualify them over here once they're in the CRM, and then send that data back to Facebook and say, okay, Facebook, we only want you to send people that are like our sales team is saying is a good call. And so this is what I mean by like training the pixel. Obviously, this can happen over time, step by step, as you're getting things going. But I think this is really important to understand because this will play a huge role in your targeting, and it will play a huge role over time. And so one of the challenges that I think a lot of people run into is they've just spent so much time training Facebook on having really bad data in their pixel that it's hard for them to break out and like start getting better people coming through if they've never even thought about it this way. So that's what I mean by like the conversion event is a really important thing to think about when you're setting up these ads. Now, the next one. So when we get down here into audience controls, we kind of have like 2 different settings now. So we have like your hard limits, and then we have what are basically like suggestions for Facebook. And so hard limits would be like location, countries. So, if you only advertise in the US, you could just say, yeah, only US here. And then there you go, you're good to go. Or if you're like a local business and you only advertise in your city, then this is where you would set up those audience controls. Now, Facebook has excluded a lot of options here anymore. So now it's like, okay, you can set a minimum age, but like, this is what usually ours looks like is like US 25, one country, and then, minimum 25, because for most of the stuff we're selling high ticket, like we don't usually advertise to a lot of people under 25 unless we have a really particular reason to. And then we might exclude customers if we want to, but usually we don't even do that anymore, to be honest. Like these are usually the hard limits that we're setting is just country and age. Now, onto the actual suggestions. So I do see in most ad accounts, we still have this option to switch back to the original audience. I have been inside new ad accounts where we don't even have this option, which is challenging, but Facebook is always kind of like playing with these things about putting things in and out or whatever it is. So just know if you see this is like a suggestion. And then if you see this is going back to like the hard limits of having an original audience. I think this is very good to use in the very beginning, and we'll talk about this here in a second. So looking at suggestions, this is where we can either create target lookalike audiences based on audiences that we already have set up in our ads manager. So we can upload, like we have our pixel data, so we could target people who have visited our website, people who have become leads, people who have taken any action on the pixel. We can build those audiences there. Customer list, this is probably the one that we use the absolute most, which is like uploading our good customers, our good calls, all of that stuff. Also, if you have an Instagram account or a Facebook page that's like active and has good customers, you can always go through and build lookalike audiences off of those. So I would say what we typically do the most these days is we will either do stacks of lookalike audiences or stacks of interest. And so what that might be is like here in custom audiences, we might have like a 1% and a 3% of our best customers. We might, or like all our customers, we might have a 1% and a 3% of all our good calls. We might have like a 1% and a 3% of good leads. We'll kind of go through our database depending on how much data we have and filter for like who are the best people that we want Facebook to learn from and go get us more of. And we'll add those in here and we'll add stacks of them because again, Facebook at this point is pretty smart with being able to understand who is the best people to be showing your ads to out of that audience. And I can show you some data here in just a second where it's like, it won't even show to the entire audience. It'll find the right people in that audience. So I'll show you how that works here in just a second. We'll either do that or we will do stacks of detailed targeting. And so again, back in the day, we used to do like test each one of these individually. We honestly don't really do that anymore. If I want to go after accountants, I could just type in accounting. And then what I could do is click here and see like what else is getting suggested with that. So I can see here financial accounting, finance, entrepreneurship, bookkeeping. So oftentimes what I'm thinking about is like, what are just similar little clusters of related audiences that we could use? So like accounting is really big, bookkeeping is another one that's probably really big. If I wanted to get a little more specific, what I could do is like type in like the big accounting firms in the world. So like one is like PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then I could see like what it suggests off of that, because I can see, now I can see like it has these other big firms. So oftentimes what we're doing is just kind of digging around in here to find a couple of different interests. And I would typically think about breaking them out into specific little clusters. So like accounting is so large that if I just did an accounting and bookkeeping one, that's probably plenty enough right there. Now, if I'm going after more specifically these like actual particular firms like Accenture and these other ones, that's going to give me a much smaller audience. Also keep in mind here, really important to look at like, see, this is looking at people who are working at Ernst & Young, which could be a valuable way to think about it. But also there's an interest group for Ernst & Young, which is going to give me a much larger audience. And so that's typically how I would think about doing these things, is like if I was going after accountants, this is probably what my interest would look like for that, because now I have this nice little audience of 1.2 million. That's not even a huge audience for Facebook these days, but that would be a good place to get started. So coming into the audience structure that we would talk about, if I was looking at detailed audience targeting and doing interest targeting like this would probably be one of my interest targetings, because I have a pretty big audience here that are all like very specific accounting related ones, versus just doing one, again, that's just like literally just typing in accounting and seeing who's interested in accounting, because we don't know which one's going to work best. What we're trying to do is give the Facebook algorithm enough directional data that it's going to be able to go forward and use that as a place to get started and then go find our best customers. Again, keeping in mind with this Audience Advantage Plus, like a lot of this is just suggestions anyways. So now that we've kind of walked through like the conversion events and how we can actually think about setting up the conversion event to actually train Facebook to send you more you want. And again, remember there's that video down in the description below that you can use to check out more about that. Also, we talked about like the lookalike audience and the interest audiences. Now let's talk about really briefly like how the algorithm works, because that's going to help understand a little bit more about how this targeting works. And then we're going to talk about the actual campaign structure I would use to set up and launch your campaigns using all this stuff that we know about the creative, the different targeting options, and the conversion events. So I think this is something really important to understand for all advertisers when you're getting started, is like knowing kind of how the algorithm will work. And I'll show you some data to kind of prove this here in just a second. But let's say you come up with an audience and that audience is 5 million people. And again, remember when you launch your campaign and you're just getting started, Facebook is taking into consideration a ton of different things. It is looking at the actual creatives. It's going to look at your targeting. It's going to look at the conversion event that you want. It's going to look at even like past data on your pixel and knowing what you've been optimizing for there. It can even take into consideration like past history on the account. So it can take all these things into account. But when it looks like this, again, you're saying, hey, I want to optimize for leads. I've got these creatives that are mentioning, let's go back to my example of accountants, because that's what I said earlier. I want to go after I've got creatives that are talking about speaking to accountants, whatever. So it's going to start showing your ads to this little group of people right here. And then if those people are taking the action that you want, then what it's going to do is just kind of expand that out and start showing it to more and more people. And based on who is taking action inside of this campaign and what is getting that conversion event that you're optimizing for, it's going to decide like how this kind of path continues based on the engagement that you're getting inside of your campaign. Now, eventually what's going to happen, no matter how much you scale your budget, is it's just going to decide what little bubble of people that it's going to show your ads to. And it's not really going to expand outside of this. And so I think that's important to understand, because even if you're targeting an audience of 1.5 million people, you're not really going to show your ads to 1.5 million people. You're going to show your ads to 1.5 million people who are relevant to that creative, who are in that targeting, who are likely to take that conversion event, who are kind of aligned with some of the past history. And even one thing that they've told us too is the creative type. I got this from like a Facebook account rep, but it's like they know who are the type of people that engage with images, who are the type of people that engage with videos, who are the type of people that engage with carousels. And so if you're only running image ads, you're even going to restrict that view even more. So you're going to have even a smaller radius. Kind of back this up with some data. So like here's a campaign that we've spent quite a bit of money on. You can see over the last couple of months, we spent $20,000 on this campaign. I can tell you when we look up inside of this ad set. So like we can see right here, this ad set automated size is 1.3 million. But when I come back over here and look at this, I can see even after I spent $20,000, my reach is about 98,000. And this frequency 4.25 means I've shown my ads about 4 times to these 98,000 people over the last couple of months. So even though this audience size is 1 million, Facebook is really quickly figuring out who are the people that it thinks it's going to take these conversion actions that I'm optimizing for. And it's continuing to show those ads to those people. So again, I think that's really important to understand because even though we're giving Facebook really, really big audiences, it's going to try to find all of the people that are going to take that conversion action that you're asking for based on all this other stuff that we've talked about. So while again, your targeting is a very important place to get started and it directionally helps Facebook understand what to do, all of these other aspects are equally as important when it comes to thinking about how we're going to get Facebook to show our ads to the right people. So just a couple of points on the creative, because we've talked about how the creative is actually really important to help with your targeting. One of the most important things is just making sure you're like calling out and being very specific about who you want to go after in your ads, because it's really important to be like very clear about who you want to target versus trying to be like clever or witty with your ads. And again, that's not only going to help people who are watching finding your ads to understand that this is for them, but it's also going to help Facebook understand who these are for. And think about like what is actually visually in your creative and like what is in there and who is in it. Because again, if you have a picture of an old lady in your ad, Facebook is going to know that, and it's going to probably assume that that's the kind of person that you want to target. And so it is important to think about like who are the actual people in your images and who are the actual like people in your videos. Also too, like one old school advertising principle, this went back to a book I think called Scientific Advertising that was written in like the 40s. And like one of the principles of advertising is put the people in your ad that you want to attract. You know, like if you are trying to attract a specific person, make sure that that's the person that's in your creative, because psychologically that's who it's going to attract. And also the algorithm is going to use that as well. So both of those are two really important. Having different mediums over time is really important. So like doing videos and images, because again, like we mentioned, some people just engage better with videos. Some people engage more with images, and Facebook knows who those people are. So if your account is all images, no videos, you're missing out a chunk of the market. And if vice versa, you're all videos, no images, you're missing out another chunk of the market. And then finally too, like when it comes to ad fatigue, it is worth mentioning like the thing that we will test the most, because the thing that burns out the fastest is your actual creative. So like we can keep the ad copy, the body, the headline, all the things the same, and we just test a bunch of creatives. If your ad starts to fatigue, the thing that we change the first is really just like the first and second sentence of the ad, because that's what's going to really like get people to hook their attention and get them to keep reading. The body and the headline will kind of phase out next. And then the last thing you would need to change is your offer, but you can usually run the same offer for a few years before you need to actually make any major changes there. All right, so based on all of that, we've got all this great information about the conversion events and the creatives and the targeting and all of that stuff. How do you actually just set up your campaigns so that you just know what to do? So if we were starting a brand new campaign, we didn't have any data on the pixel, we were just getting started, this is what I would be thinking about. One, I would just have probably 3 ad sets. And inside that ad set, let's go back to the example of accountants, because that was, like the example I started with already. One might be like the interest targeting of just like accounting and bookkeeping. They're ginormous audiences, they're huge, but it's like, this is the base thing that we're trying to target right now. The next interest targeting might be like just going after those actual accounting firms, because we know that if you're an accounting professional that's in this space, there's probably very likely that you've followed or engaged with or liked some of these big accounting firms in the space to keep up with what's going on as a professional. The last one, if I have any past lookalike audience data, so maybe I'm just starting ads, but I've already got a list of customers customers, or I've got a list of good leads, or I've been taking sales calls and I have a list of all the people I've been talking to on the phone. If any of those audiences are more than like probably 200 people, I say 200 because I think they say you need like 100 people to get a good lookalike audience, but the matching's not always 100%. So it's not like if you upload 100 emails, you'll get 100 people. Let's say you have, 50% match rate. So, about 200 people more or less, I would start trying to create a lookalike audience. It'll also tell you in there like, hey, this audience is too small to create one, or if you can't get a big enough one. So you can just try to make a couple in there. But moral of the story, I would have a lookalike audience in here. And what I would do is I would just launch, my different ads, all the same ads in those different audience targetings, and I would see which one starts to give me the best results. Now, based on that, I could start to evolve. Now, the thing is, as you start to collect more data on your pixel, particularly more data about the people that you actually want to be driving into your funnel, right? Not just all leads, but like actually good leads, or not just anyone who fills out the application, but like people who are good qualified leads that actually book a call and talk with our sales team. As we start to get more and more data, you can start to have broader and broader audiences, because the Facebook pixel is also using the information about who are the people that are taking this event to start to go out and target within these audiences the people that it wants. Again, if I was just getting started, I would even try to probably be like more restrictive here in the very beginning. So maybe what I would do is I would switch back to this original audience here in the very beginning, so I could like try to be a little more restrictive. But over time, like once we've been spending a lot of money, we've got more data on our pixel, we're sure that we're optimizing for good leads and the right people that we want. What we end up doing is just like audience plus suggestions, and these are just really big audiences, and we're just letting Facebook kind of algorithm go out and find who our best people are based on all this other stuff that we talked about. So just kind of based on everything that we talked about and wrapping this up, we talked about how Facebook is not just doing your targeting based on what you're putting in that audience. Most of the time, it's just using that as a suggestion anyways, but it's also about your conversion event, what data is on your pixel, and it's also about like the actual creatives itself. So we all want to think about all of these things. The creatives, we talked about a little structure for that. The pixel, we talked about a structure to optimize for the leads that you want. And I've got that video down and below. And then with the actual audiences, we basically have lookalike and interest. So we will either stack interest or we will stack lookalike audiences, and we'll just test to see what works, keeping in mind all these other factors are going to play a big role in who is actually being targeted with our ads. When I look at our best accounts, particularly where we're selling like high ticket offers, none of them are actually running broad audiences. So we're not doing like the thing that I hear with a lot of e-com brands where it's just like, just do absolutely no targeting. We usually have some targeting in there, but these are really big audiences, at least 1 million up to like 5 million, if not bigger. So we're just directionally telling Facebook which way we want to go. And then we're letting all these other factors play a role in how it's actually finding the right people for our offers. And again, a big part of it that's playing a big role is actually just the creative. So like, what are we actually saying in our ads, and what are the actual like images and videos that we're putting there? That's it for this video. If any questions, just drop them down in the comments below. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, because that really helps me, one, make more videos like this, and two, understand what you guys want to see. If you want to watch some more videos about how to use Facebook ads to sell digital products and high ticket offers, I've probably got some other videos popping up on my face. One of these sides, I can never remember which one. But so check those out. Otherwise, have a great day, and I hope to catch you in another video soon.